we get questions all the time. When are you going to Joburg? When are you going to see you in Joburg? When are you going to see you in Durban? When are you going to see you here? At the moment, I can't see that happening without us sacrificing a lot of quality. And there's so much left to do in Cape Town still. Frankie Fenner was hiring one day. They basically sent out a post on Instagram. 3-4 of my friends sent it to me and said, check this out. I'd stepped back from what I was doing, and I kind of went in there not knowing where the hell what I was doing and what I was expecting out of it. And
what was the role?
It was a front of house role. I was going to make coffee and sell meat to people. I sat down and he was like, years later, he told me, like, I didn't understand why you were here. You had a finance background and a CV that did not tie in with what you walked into the door to interview for. But a month later, I was then head of the operations of the business. With Addy then basically knowing he was leaving, that's when my mindset shifted completely to being like,
it's either step up or step out.
Exactly. Becoming an owner. It changes your everything. I said to myself, I was going to take the Monday off and just have like a personal day. Go for a walk the dogs, I don't know, lie on the couch. I mean, do anything. Just have like a complete switch off day. And I woke up on Monday and I had a shower and went to work. And I was like, I found myself at work being like, why the hell am I here? I said to myself, I needed to take a break and take a day off. And I mean, I absolutely could have. It's a very, very, very strange thing. I feel like, how can I not be there? I think the biggest thing is the way we conduct ourselves and the way that we conduct our business. I always want that to be from a place of kindness and caring and good ethos. So I want that to be the North Star of what we do, you know? I know that might sound a bit too kumbaya, but I really believe there's enough snakes and cutthroats in the world that I really want to be a bastion for, like, doing something the right way. It might not buy me a Bugatti, but that's okay.
Hello and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I'm talking to Andrew Null, the co-owner of Frankie Fenner Meat Market. And this story is one of the most authentic encounters and sharings of a skating journey that I've probably had to date on the podcast. So I'm pretty sure you're going to love the hell out of this. Andrew gets into the very honest accounting of how he started in the business, how he ended up taking over the ownership, how the business almost got decimated during COVID, but how by managing culture and people and relationships and getting communities to come together, survive through that, but how he's like expanded across retail and wholesale all across Cape Town, how he is just like taken his team to the next level, sitting at about 50 people now. And just stories about everything from how you manage the guilt of not being around for your team and being present for them, to the sleepless nights, through to the kind of culture that you're trying to build, how you get your people super engaged, the admin functions of your business, getting that set up. So this is just like, it's all of us. This is entrepreneurship. It is the emotional account. It is the practical account. It's the things that he's implemented, the things that he's changed, the things that he's still struggling with and worrying about. Like, this is the reason I do this podcast, for people that are going to share their story this openly, because you listening to this right now, I feel like there's few stories you're going to learn from or resonate with more than someone who's going to share it this open and honestly. So, and if you're not following the podcast or subscribed to us yet, this is the quintessential example of why it is that I do what I do, right? I'm getting these honest and authentic accounts of how people are going about scaling their businesses with no holds barred, nothing hidden, everything honest and true. And if this is the content that you're into, this is the podcast you want to follow. So make sure you're doing that now. But let's get straight into the story with Andrew. It's gold. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. So Andrew, welcome to the Founder Files.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So for those that don't know you and don't know Frankie Fenner, talk to us about your business and yourself.
Yeah, Frankie Fenner is a butchery based in Cape Town. We kind of started about 12 years ago now. There was a gap in the market for free range, grass-fed, traceable meat, and my current business partner founded the business. We are based in Woodstock. We've got shops in a couple locations in Cape Town, and I guess our mission statement is to provide proper meat to people. We want traceable, responsible, ethically sourced meat in everyone's hands, basically. There's a lot, there's always space for commercial farming and space for people, you know, to have more of a commercial aspect, because we wouldn't be able to fulfill everyone's needs. But I mean, our hope is that people eat less meat, but at least make it sourceable and sustainable and traceable. So it's the mission statement that we have. We want people to eat less meat, which is weird for a butchery.
That is weird for a
But
butchery.
at least make it proper.
So talk to me a bit about that mission, because like just over the past decade, 15 years or so, maybe even less, like decade, 5 to 10 years, there's been like documentaries that have really come out that have shown how just unethical or just immoral, the meat industries can be, and like where our beef comes from, particularly in red meats. And I know that that's created a huge wave of people becoming vegetarian, becoming vegan just because of animal cruelty. Is that played a big play in why Frankie Fenner even started in the first place? Or is there more to it?
Absolutely. No. So my partner Andy was a San Pellegrino top 50 judge and would go to these, top restaurants in Cape Town and globally. And especially here, we were a little bit behind the trend. You'd go to this premium restaurant and establishment that is championing provenance of wine, and there's lots of emphasis in the sourcing of the furniture. But you ask them about the origins of the meat, and people say, well, it's from the sirloin. Um, it's it was quite incredible, the sort of
It's from a
lack of
cow. What do you
care.
mean the
Yeah,
origins of the
yeah.
meat?
It's from, like, of course, it's beef. Like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
And I think that's the journey started for him when he started to go to these places and say, what is the origin of the meat? Where's it from? And no one could tell them because they'd order in a box of sirloins from the supplier, and it would just arrive at the door, and they just cut it up and sold it. And it was a little personal journey that he went on. And he said, I'm not going to eat meat unless I found the origin. And then kind of by accident went vegetarian for a while because no one was able to answer the questions, and realized overseas there was, and our inspiration, a lot of what we do comes from places like New York and old butchers in England and French butcheries where, provenance is maybe even European is even more so. The provenance is just, it is that way because the animals are living naturally outside, and they're eating less meat. They're not eating on the quantities as Africans do. So it's maybe a little bit easier. And a lot of the inspiration came from places, like there's butcheries in New York that we often reference, and places like the Meat Hook and Foster and Sundry, and they're doing these very small scale boutique butcheries where they really focus on, all they do is kind of what we do now is we only source grass-fed and free range, and we only source animals that are, ethical sourcing is the cornerstone of what we do. So basically, yeah, the origin was just from a lack of availability of information, I guess. That's where the business started. And it started on a very small little side road in Cliff Street, and then expanded into uh, the place where most people remember us from was downstairs in Church Street. There was a public wine bar, and we opened with public wine bar way back when. And that's about where I joined the journey. This is about a year or two into the business starting.
Cool. So, it's a lovely cliffhanger there. You said that's not your first time doing podcasts and doing media, so well done. I think before we get down to that part and actually understand about your origin story in the business, and I can imagine the audience is like, you mentioned that Andy's the founder. How do you fit into this? I mean, you're going to get that answer shortly, but just to also understand where the business at now. I mean, you said you started off on Church Street, kind of small. Like, talk to me about the kind of scale that Frankie Fenner is at now.
So, yeah, it started off basically doing biltong and coffee, and buying in meat from a farm. But again, it was sort of pre-packaged stuff. There was no space to do it, but at least the origin and provenance was celebrated. And then Church Street was where we first started to get carcasses in the door, so processing whole animals. And outgrew that space in about 2 years, and we've moved to Woodstock now. So we've got a premises in Woodstock, and we are supplying. I went through our wholesale list the other day, and like I was kind of just taken aback and blown away. Of the top 10 restaurants in Cape Town, how many we supply. It's a real feather in the cap because it's been a big focus to get our wholesale growing again, and it's part of the I guess it really fuels me too, because it's awesome to deal with these people who are sort of captains in their own industries and in their own spaces. So to be able to, engage with and interact with real champions of the food industry it really, really, really does scratch the itch. We have quite a few stores now. Unfortunately, we've had to close down one recently, but we're opening up the Sea Point again. So it takes us back to 4. And yeah, we are supplying wholesale far and wide, from Stellenbosch to Franschhoek to a lot of the CBD and Constantia, but also based out of our Woodstock facility. I guess scale is been interesting, but we've tried it, especially after. I mean, I hate to talk about COVID because it feels like it's like BC and AD. It's like
Yeah,
before
before
COVID and
COVID.
after. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always made that joke, but I think the religious people amongst us might not enjoy that. So
Safe with me.
so yeah, there we go. So before COVID, I think the vision was open more retail stores, and retail was the sort of name of the game. And online, man, that's a difficult one, because I just don't think it would be an interesting thing to really sit and do a proper SWOT analysis and understand what online means for Frankie Fenner and a butchery, because we're very analog and tactile. And we actually have this beautiful full Shopify site that's kind of just been waiting to be launched. But it's such a competitive space, and I don't think that I mean, with the big guys like Checker 6060 and things like that, they're doing things so efficiently. And I know that our product is completely different, but in terms of a service delivery, it's really, really hard to compete with the logistics and the power of those guys. When you can just sit on your couch and order your briquettes and boerewors and brandy and coke, and everything arrives in 60 minutes, it's really, really difficult.
But I'd also argue it's a different customer experience. I think the point there is that it's like whenever you're buying something premium and quality, even you want, like as you say, you want that service to be of the same standard. And it's like I can't just have it either being delayed or just rocking up in some dude's boot of a car, or like you can't like I'm not going to sacrifice elements of my customer experience just so I can start participating in the e-commerce space. I think that's what the message I'm getting from you.
Absolutely. That's the nail on the head. So, we wanted to do it to make it a bit of a slicker experience, that if you are sitting there and Cameron's sitting there and he wants his steak delivered to his house, we do that, but it's quite clunky at the moment. It's all via email, which is just so archaic. And there was a submission site on the website, but it's also just clunky. So the whole vision for the online site was just to make that a bit smoother, but it's definitely can't be, and the reason I'm saying this is because, talking about scale, it's been an interesting one, because we get questions all the time. When are you going to Joburg? When are you going to see you in Joburg? When are you going to see you in Durban? When are you going to see you here? And it's, at the moment, I can't see that happening without us sacrificing a lot of quality. And there's so much left to do in Cape Town still. So fully focused on Cape Town, and we have
Cape Town and
an
surrounds.
incredible Cape Town and surrounds. We've got an incredible food scene here, and the food knowledge and basis and restaurants and clientele maybe needs to catch up a bit in their thinking and ethos. Because we were joking last night. I saw a friend of mine at the market who's also got a food brand, and we were just saying, sometimes you overestimate the customer, and people just want boerewors rolls. So, it's nothing wrong with the boerewors roll, but yeah, I think there's so much to do in Cape Town still. So focusing growth in this space, and how do we allow ourselves to grow within the Cape Town landscape? And when I say Cape Town, it's Cape Town and surrounds for sure.
Got you. Okay. Talk to me about that origin story, right? You joining the business. Clearly it's a very different state right now, as you just articulated, compared to just being a public wine and butchery, or like as you said, biltong and coffee. So yeah, talk to me about the beginning.
So basically, I studied finance, and I was in personal financial consulting for a bit, as I mentioned to you before, I think when we first met. And it was not something that I loved and that I saw myself doing for the rest of my life. And I was having a bit of a quarter life crisis at that stage because I was a bit younger than I was. Less gray hairs in my beard. And I lost my mom very young. So cooking became something that I took over for my dad and myself. I always loved cooking with my mom growing up, and I loved food. And I realized that food is such a beautiful thing. It's, we're one of the only species, well, we're the only species in the world that celebrates food like we do. There's no other animal that engages with food the way we do. And when you are going away, when you're coming back home, when someone's ill, when someone's healthy, when someone's lost someone, when someone's had a child, everything centers around food. It's such a beautiful community driver, and across cultures all across the world, food is this beautiful thread that brings people together. And I absolutely love the experiences it can create. I mean, you've done a show with Donkey Longtong, but we sitting around a fire with your friends and being able to be able to get people from all walks of life together, or the celebration you can have around it is just beautiful. So for me, in a personal journey, I guess it was this deep sort of understanding of that, and I didn't really understand it when I was younger. So I was always, while I was in this little journey of discovery, I realized that I wanted to be in the food industry, but I didn't know if I wanted to be a chef because I didn't want to watch the world pass me by while I was chopping onions in the kitchen. And there's very successful restaurateurs out there, but there's a far more unsuccessful restaurateurs. It's a very, very difficult business, and it's long hours, and you're away from your family and loved ones. And I was looking in, you know, I fell in love with produce, and being a South African man, you can't help but just love meat. And I think I maybe loved it a bit more than the other guy. That's how I landed up here. And Frankie Fenner was hiring one day. Um, they basically were sent out a post on Instagram that I was sent to. I think three, four of my friends sent it to me and said, check this out. And at the time I'd step back from what I was doing, and I kind of went in there not knowing where the hell what I was doing and what I was expecting out of it. And I remember walking down the stairs and having the interview with Andy. And I mean, years later,
What was
he
the
said to
role?
me, it was a front of house role, literally. Like I was gonna make coffee and sell meat to people. Um, and I remember I sat down and Andy was like, "What's?" Years later, he told me, like, I didn't understand why you were here. You had a finance background and a CV that did not tie in with what you walked into the door to interview for. But a month later, I was then head of the operations of the business, and yeah,
That's where the
it's
finance
skyrocketed.
background helps.
Yeah, it's skyrocketed. Obviously, my vision was never just to sell coffee and sell meat to people, but I didn't know at that stage where I was going to go. I just wanted to just get out of what I was doing, and it was a complete leap of faith. I was about 28 years old, and yeah, about 27 years old. So I just took a right turn, and I mean, it's been the best decision I've ever done in my life. From there, we've taken the business and grown it, and I've been an integral part of that alongside Andy. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey. Like I said, I never thought that we'd be doing the things that we do now, and the vision I have going forward, and the things that I'm able to do because of this lifestyle and this business, are just things that I never thought I'd be able to have and achieve. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you, man. I can see that there's a lot of gratitude in the way that you explain your story. So it sounds like the stars aligned, serendipity kicked in, and you found the right business, found the right business for you.
That doesn't mean it's not a business, though. It's still everyday stresses, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not all roses and butterflies. Definitely not. It's as you know,
Well, I think if it was, would you be as engaged in it?
no, definitely not.
So going back to the whole BC, I was actually even contemplating like what is because it's not AD. I'm wondering if it's AEC, and it's more like after the e-commerce boom. So like you've got before COVID, then after e-commerce, kind of the way that the world fundamentally changed. But that's an aside for another time. But the reason why I point that out is because naturally in a business like yours, like COVID is a fundamental moment because it's like everything's different afterwards, everything's different before, and it's like your business almost died just because of COVID. So, but let's just talk to the audience quickly about that point of you joining front of house, selling biltong, making coffee. A month later, head of operations. Talk to me just about that kind of growth journey of yourself in the business as well as the business up until COVID.
Yeah, so basically that was when I joined as we opened our first store, which is unfortunately the one that was I'm going to be honest and say forced to close down because it was not our choosing. Um, I don't know. I think Andy at that time saw the potential and the need for someone to be able to have his eyes and ears as I need now across the business. Someone who can look at things critically and someone who can who can sort of be a shoulder to lean on. And I think, yeah, we basically we moved very shortly from that space to Woodstock. And this is where we sort of had the retail driver being retail, retail, retail. We had the hub and spoke model where we wanted Woodstock to be the hub and us build out stores based around that. The wholesale growth kind of happened organically again because as when I joined, it was basically friends and friends of the brand who had restaurants and were around the area. You know, there was And Union back in the day across the road, and Jason's Bakery up the road, and Chef's Warehouse just down the road, and it was very ad hoc and just I think the business at the time was nowhere near ready to absorb wholesale margins. They needed the fat of a retail margin, and that's kind of where when we moved to Woodstock, we had the retail, but just realized that there's so much more capacity and there's margin to give away because retail sounds sexy and appealing because of the big margins that it presents. But I mean, as we all know, the costs along with those, you know, having stores, having staff, having operational needs and demands versus wholesale, you lose margin, but it's a far easier business because you sell, the customer takes it and they use it, or they resell, um, and that's the end of it. There's no sort of, you know, you don't have to worry about someone coming late to a store, and you don't have to worry about someone not arriving at work or arriving at work drunk or theft or whatever it may be.
Before you continue that path, I actually just want to separate the nature of retail and wholesale because even though everyone here is a consumer and like there's a certain obviousness to what the difference between retail and wholesale, I think obviously within retail, your main customer is going to be mid to high income consumers, right? That are meat
Yes.
eaters. On the
Yes.
wholesale side, it's going to be who are your different customers? Is it predominantly restaurants? I'm assuming yes. Who else? I'm sure you've got multiple different kinds of customers in the wholesale space. Hotels.
Yeah. So I think the big thing for me now recently, well, when I say recently, in the last 2-3 years, once we picked it up again, has been to diversify the wholesale base. So we, again, before COVID, BC, it was restaurant, 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 and obviously they all disappeared. So it was a massive blow to the sort of baseline of our business. So it's been a concerted effort afterwards to diversify where we are selling to. So it's, you know, B2B, it's restaurants, retail stores. We supply quite a lot of spas, delis, catering companies, hotels. So there's a lot of irons and a lot of fires. So that, you know, with this winter has been a real rough one for a lot of people. But I say it, I mean, I'm going to whisper this part because I don't feel, I feel heartless when I say that we really haven't had such a bad winter because of, it's nice to see the fruits of the diversification coming through because it really has been trying to plug all these holes so that we have a more stable year, you know, that the year doesn't have these spikes and ebbs and flows, especially how Cape Town was and is so seasonal that you have this massive winter drop off. So it has been a lot of diversification. And like I said, the sort of, I don't know what I call it, third party retail. But when I say that, that's supplying other retail stores with the Frankie Fenner branding. So it's really, really great that we are in some of the top spas in Cape Town. And they have to do the legwork. Then you drop off the meat there, and then I mean the brand is nowadays strong enough that people know it. So hopefully it's recognizable when you walk into a shop and see it. But that has been a big one. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a mixed bag of businesses, from catering to food clubs um, to restaurants to retailers. Yeah.
Cool. Good to know. Now let's go back to BC when you were only still just starting to get the wholesale going to restaurants and people are stealing and arriving at work drunk, etc. in the retail space. It's those challenges. Let's get back to that part of the story.
So we had we'd organically started growing again with wholesale because we had the space and people were asking again. So I mean, even up to last week, I still had a friend of mine who's a chef being like, "Oh my god, I didn't know you did wholesale," because it's just something that we kind of steered away from so much. We organically then started to supply more restaurants. The retail, other retail stores like spas and things were never on the radar back then. And then I mean, we'd built up a nice sort of real good wholesale base, and then alongside that, we'd had almost pen to paper. It was hovering above Constantia Village as another shop, and then the walls came crashing down with March 2020, where we had to close our Durbanville shop. And the journeys, then basically everything just shut up. And it was really, really interesting because there was this very short, amazing drive by the public to support local and small scale, and like this incredible sort of, I guess, ethos and collective community consciousness to be like, we need to support and help the small guys because they're the ones you can perceive and see value in. And it lasted for a couple months, and then everyone went back to Woolworths. So it was really, really beautiful to see the I'd say like May, June of that 2020 year, when we were in the darkest of times and restaurants were closing. Like everyone was really, really helping, and then I think the fatigue set in, and people just couldn't give anymore, needed to look after themselves. So there was a real dark period from that time onwards, I guess, to the end of that year, where so many restaurants had closed down. And I mean, I can't remember the data right now, but May 2020, which is a random month, we had, to this day, still one of our record turnovers because everyone just came to support. Everyone came to buy. They were like boycotting Woolworths. And then I think
And then that just fell off a cliff.
regular programming set back in, and people went back to factory settings. And they just went back to what was easy and what was convenient. So
Sure. Okay. Um, I want to pause it there and just go back to the same story chronologically, but now with a different element to it, and that's you, right? It's like, again, I'm trying to still. You've given me the brief synopsis of this, obviously talking beforehand, but giving the story to the audience is like the last time we heard about your role and your evolution in the company was head of operations. I know there's Andy wanted you to be a shareholder, and you were like, nope, not yet, don't want that. Which is always like, I find super interesting because like founders really hesitate to give their equity away, and you didn't want it just yet. So, just talking about your journey there from like operations through to ownership of the business.
So yeah, I think at the time it just wasn't something that was important to me. I don't know why, and I don't know. I can try and I guess it was not now, later. We'll get there. It was never something that I'd needed, and that I'd the validation of telling someone that you're an owner was not something that I'd needed. I think I was also still not sure of my journey. I didn't know what that looked like. I was navigating. I mean, it's a 2-3 years of complete redirection in my life, and a lot of personal growth. I mean, I grew massively joining Frankie Fenner because of the dynamic nature of the small business. Where you are HR and the shoulder to cry on, and the punisher and the accountant, and when you're head of operations, I mean, that was just a title. It was in a small business. Andy and I worked shoulder to shoulder, and Nicole, his wife, was still very much involved then. Um, but I mean, it was everything from talking to suppliers to giving a written warning to someone to fixing the plumbing at the back to making sure the bucky was running properly to when the driver was too drunk one day to come to work to do deliveries to looking at a strategy for the next year. So it was as it is. And then I think the sort of real change came. I mean, I again, it's such a weird thing to talk about COVID because it sounds so stale, but it was really like a watershed moment for so many people and businesses. Um,
I think that the thing is that just because it was only like a year or two, it just feels like a fever dream. And for so many people, it like affected them so negatively. But even talking back to it, is it's like it's so surreal because the world's kind of just carried on. We just got radically traumatized, and it's like, oh, we're just gonna move forward. So I hear you in terms of like the challenge of talking about it, but like it was an extremely traumatic time, but it was also like a fever dream looking back at it.
it was, and like I said, I feel so staid to talk about it. It's like, wow, why are we still talking about it? But I mean, it was, if when we have a reflective discussion like this, then it definitely is. It was a massively pivotal moment in people's thinking and my thinking. And I mean, there was dark times. When I mean, this is confession time here, but basically in Cape Town, especially in South Africa at that time, a lot of my friends had left and were leaving. Um, this is also around the time when I realized that and understood that my partner was going to leave, um, and that his plans were to go overseas. And this kind of happened. I knew about this just before COVID. We'd had a discussion, and that was where the real sort of change in me came, because I realized that he was leaving, and I kind of, what was I going to do now? This was I guess that was the kick that I needed to be like, I'm all in here. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. And this is what I love doing. And this is what I see myself doing. And, um, that's, I guess that knowledge became about 2019. And then 2020 was just obviously just like head down, just survival mode. I mean, I lost myself. I remember we didn't really know how to navigate this thing. So we basically, we, it was a Thursday that hard lockdown was. I think it was the Friday, it was the actual when everything shut down. And we said to the team, guys, if you can come to work, but be safe. We arranged transport for people because we were like, we need to try and, as a symbol, and like we need to try and keep going. Like, we can't just say no, we're going to shut up shop, and we're allowed to be open. So I remember driving on the highway from town to Woodstock, and I felt like I was an I Am Legend, like just like no one on the road, and I was like, what is going on? And we all got to work, and I think like of the people that could come, obviously we kept everyone as safe as we could, and we arranged at all big cost of the business transport to and from work. But we kind of closed that weekend, and then from the Monday we opened again, and we were open the whole time, and it was just crazy because I think I'm still got PTSD about it, about kind of just putting my everything into the business, which we're going to get to later, as I understand the guilt of not being there. I think it's thanks to that time that it really did some damage, which I think a lot of people are still trying to undo. But with Addy, then basically knowing he was leaving, that's when my mindset shifted completely to being like,
It's
I
either
want to be
step up
shoulder.
or step out.
Exactly. And it was very, very, it was, I guess it's, when you flip a coin, you realize exactly what you want. So that was the coin flip. I wanted it to be heads because that's sort of what I wanted. So it was very, very, very clear that that's where the shift was. When I knew that he was leaving, which was basically where the decision was finally made, to go from. I mean, it was always a strange one because besides being really good friends, we worked incredibly well together, and from a year or two in, he treated me as an owner of the business and as a founder. I mean, I'd been there from the first couple of years when it was the very, very small shop, but that big sort of like next big jump, I was there for that whole journey. So from that sort of basement into like where we are today, um, he'd always treated me as an equal. So it was a, maybe that was part of the stagnation too, because I was like, I'm kind of engaging as an owner already. What difference will it make? This was kind of where my thought process was. But I mean, obviously then, becoming an owner, it changes your everything. It changes your drive and your motivation and your dark times when you don't want to go to work in the mornings. You find this deep sort of fire somewhere inside of you that motivates you and keeps you going.
I mean, I know you'll resonate with this too, and almost every entrepreneur would. But there's something extremely liberating about there's no one to blame. Like it's on me. I'm the most radically accountable person, and there's something that's both enticing and liberating about that feeling because then part of it is you find out who you really are and what you're really capable of. And I don't know. I love that. I love that level of accountability.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. A friend of mine, and he's an amazing person, but he's been working for a business for a very long time, and he's been booked off for burnout, and justifiably so. He's been given his heart and soul to this place, and we were walking on the mountain, and he told me this, and while being, and I'm sorry if he's listening to this, but while being sympathetic, I was thinking to myself like, fuck. I really want to be off for 2 months too. I want to take a sabbatical, which I think is ultimately what one can work towards in a business, right? That I can go to Argentina for a month and go and explore the culture there. And the I say that because that's been burning in my brain. Um, but at the same time, in saying that, there is this like Kuberg reactor of like energy that you kind of like, I have to do this. I'm going to do this. Like there's no choice. I'm just, if I don't do it, no one else will. Which I guess you go through moments as a owner and entrepreneur of like, that's, you fight that, and then and that's when times get tough, and that's when you do get exhausted, or you go like, well, that's cool. I've chosen to take this challenge on, and this is what I'm gonna do. So I guess it can ebb and flow as long as it doesn't ebb too much to fighting against that, and swimming against the stream. But yeah, there's definitely a fire that burns in an entrepreneur, I guess.
Have you read The Alchemist?
I have, yeah.
That's
Beautiful.
exactly what I think of when there's that decision that's made, and then you enter the desert, right? And you have to get there to get to your treasure and achieve your destiny. But the point is, it's like that desert is going to test the hell out of you, and it's going to suck, and you're going to feel yourself making progress. But it is just, yeah. And then you hallucinate, and you get so stressed and burnt out that you're like sitting on a cliff, and you've got some oak talking to you, or like a bird is flying, and there's a sandstorm, etc. Anyone who hasn't read it, it's a great book.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like last weekend. So
Exactly. Uh, okay, I wanna talk about more business practical. The actual transition of shares and ownership. Was there a buyout? How did that relationship and conversation happen? For anyone who's thinking about succession, who's thinking about employee share options, or trying to get this some senior person in their team bought into their business, or whatever it might be. But like this transitioning of ownership and shareholding was always an interesting situation. Um, there's finance, there's legal, there's all these kinds of things going into it. What was that like for you guys? How did you make it through that, and how formal was it, I guess?
So it wasn't. I mean, I say this with the utmost respect to Andy. Like the way that he handled the situation was so gracious and understanding that that it was always something that he'd driven and he'd pushed, not pushed, that's not the right word, something that he'd facilitated. um and even recently we had a really really open discussion about the next transition and the next sort of phase, because what does the business look like in a year or two or 5 years time, because he is overseas. So I, but in saying that, I fully respect the fact that this is a really, really, really difficult topic for a lot of people. And even for myself, there's sometimes there's massive amounts of roadblocks and blockers um, for people when it comes to this, because it is a really, really, as you said, there are so many hurdles that could potentially come up, and it's not usually an easy process. It sometimes is incredibly difficult and loaded and complicated and emotional, and yeah, I mean, often things don't really go well. But I must say, for us, it was pretty seamless, and um, it was always very, very, like I said, very, very open. So I don't have a dramatic story when it comes to that. It was a very much a an agreement which was favorable for both parties, and it was, like I said, I can't give you any juicy gory details here, because it was a really really really
Right, it's,
really
it's a highly
seamless
confidential
one.
matter, but it's
Yeah,
also
but
seamless.
also at the same time, I do, like, I mean, I've seen it with friends of mine, and I've seen it with so many times, that's people, they want a piece of something, and they're working in a business, and they want to grow it, and they've been growing it, and they want to be a part, and they want a seat at the table. And where do you even begin the discussion? Because it's such a insurmountable, huge thing for people. um and yeah, I think people are very protective of their businesses and spaces too. So the fact that Andy allowed the space for someone like me to come in and you know take part in and take ownership of his business is a testament to him, and the way that he handled the situation. But it's definitely not like that for everyone. I mean, there's horror stories out there.
But either way, it is such it's very complex to go through. On face value, it's very uncomplicated. It's like we're just shifting equity between two people, and there's agreement, and there's going to be some form of transaction and a legal agreement that happens. But there's a power dynamic that changes. There is like, as the founder, if you've got 100% equity and bringing someone over, you feel like you're shaving off part of your identity as well and handing that over to someone else. There's a level of control that happens here, and it's really this a power dynamic and identity battle and shift that happens within people, and that's like the most underestimated part, and that's why it can be super complicated. um that's also why I always like understanding and talking about it. So I guess on that, what was that like for you guys in the relationship? I mean, there was already a huge amounts of trust between the two of you. There's also a part of that, there's a decision for him to move overseas already. So yeah.
Again, like, really not as drastic as one would think, because he'd it was almost like this was a foregone conclusion, and it was just a matter of like getting the paperwork done and the administrative side done. Um, and I think at the time also he'd been so busy in other projects. There was a massive project involved in the waterfront, which kind of took his focus, a lot of the focus. So I was left to run the business for those for the again, I'm trying to piece together timelines here, because it's quite difficult to remember exactly when that all happened. But there was a big project with the waterfront, a consulting project. Um, so we had a discussion. He said, "I'm going to be very, I'm going to. This is going to take a hell of a lot of my time." So all these little things added up to the transition and change in mindset not being that drastic, because he'd always treated me as a owner, and as a partner, even before that was official. So, and again, I think that's a testament to the way he handled the situation, because there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of ownership. I wouldn't say ownership. There's a lot of attachment to people's businesses, and I think even now, as we sit here now, we had a very good conversation the other day where he saw some media that we'd done, and he mentioned that, seeing it fills it's such a mixed emotion, seeing from far away the brand that's doing really well, and we're growing and thriving, and so kind of watch it from the outside is a very complex emotion for him. So, but yeah, I think we'd always had a massive level of mutual respect, and an open communication, and that sounds so overused and such a cliche, but I mean the openness of the relationship definitely made it so much easier, that we'd grown to become friends and partners. Um, that it was seamless.
So okay, so COVID. Back to the story there. Yeah, what happened, right? So, I mean, the last thing that we left off was that you had your record month in May 2020. Everyone went back to factory settings and went to Woolworths, but then still things were quite dark in that time. How did you manage to survive? I know that you lost the shop during that time, so that you managed to keep everyone employed, which is incredible. But must have been really hard. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you just suddenly have, from a very sort of stable, predictable. Again, wholesale is definitely more stable and predictable than retail. So it's this nice sort of like fat buffer, and that just disappeared overnight with no sort of safety net. We lost our Durbanville store, which was a decision that we had to make, because it was a mixed use store, which was predominantly a restaurant. So we'd done, in terms of the way the business was diversifying, it was a new sort of concept that we'd done to go into. Andy and myself and a lot of people at Frankie Fenner, because we're not just butchers, we love food, and we it's part of what we do now. We do a lot more catering and events and cooking and dinners, and it's a big sort of driver and passion driver. We'd opened the shop in Durbanville that was a mixed use space, butchery and food, and we basically weren't allowed to trade. So it was quite an easy decision. We had to save what we had, so cut the arm off to save the body. And thank goodness I don't know how we did this, but we managed to get everyone back in, and everyone. I think there was one guy who had resigned and said he wanted to do something else, but the rest of the staff jumped in, and this is kind of where we opened that burger shop at House of Machines. So we repurposed and found a way to use staff members, and we had a couple projects down the line which were obviously just being postponed, but we made sure that we kept the team employed, and it was through a lot of sacrifice to the company, to keep everyone there. But we saw the bigger picture and the family that we have working for us, because we're still at the stage where, well, we're almost 50 employees. We are 50 employees, but I know everyone's full name and surname, and they are really part of the unit, and we are a very, very close, very, very close team. So that then everyone was supporting us, and everyone was all in to get local produce and get support local. But that changed very quickly, so we had to pivot to deliveries. We went overnight. We turned on home deliveries and switched that on, and our burgers, which have become like a bit of a cult thing, where we do the Burger Friday every Friday. We couldn't do that anymore, so we went into pivoting, and I'm using the word pivot now, which was, I hated it that in 2020. If I heard the word pivot one more time, I wanted to jump off a cliff. But we basically did burger boxes, and we came online, and then the ones that you could cook at home, which we're still doing today. And we did a whole campaign called Save Your Fave. So we were collabing with restaurants that were basically had no income, and we added a price onto the burger boxes and did collabs with these restaurants. Um, and I charged a little bit more for the burger box, and all that money went to the restaurant to help pay staff. And it was an incredibly, it was a beautiful campaign. I think we did it with about 30 or 40 different restaurants, and the amount of money raised was crazy. That we just, paid to these places that were destitute. I mean, guys didn't know what to do. And then, I mean, I must say, from a food retail point of view, we were quite lucky because we were able to sell and we were able to trade. So we just put focus into being able to get product into customers' hands. A lot of those things we were doing back then, we're still doing today. So making sure that we have delivery services that run properly, and a lot of things we brought online back then are still there today because it was maybe a bit of a mindset shift. Not being complacent and let everyone come to you. I think that's still prevalent in my thinking, is that I realized then, we need to be proactive in getting to people instead of, and how do we get product into people's hands? I think that's a lot of the sort of mindset shift that happened afterwards with the diversifying of where we're at and how we get product into people's hands. So it's I guess if there was one positive and a legacy, that's that it wasn't so bad. It was a mindset change of build it and they will come, but let's also take it to them.
But I think I mean, created a lot of complexity for you. I've been on the wholesale side. It's everything from you wholesaling to the retailers. You've got restaurants, you've got hotels, you've got caterers. But then now you are also doing your own catering. You've got Frankie Fenner Feasts, you've got Frankie's Burgers, you've gone from being a butcher to being a wholesaler, and also to being restaurants and food and beverage as well. I know that you probably have a lot of partnerships with other complementary brands. You retail a lot of products that aren't straight butchery, straight out of your store as well. So I think there's a lot of complexity to that, but it's the consequences that there's so many people that have been able to get your brand into their hands and their experience as you intended. But yeah, talk to me about all those different layers of complexity and how that's going.
You see these lines under my eyes. That's what the complexity lines. Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a great guys I know that are very successful in what they do, and we sat down the other day. We're doing a big event with them, and we kind of just made this joke. Well, while we can say yes, let's say yes, because there's going to be a time where we can't. So I'm definitely in the phase of yes, and this is definitely also it's definitely at a lot of personal sacrifice, and I guess to be more discerning in what you say yes to is a luxury that I might be able to get in a little while's time. But for now, I'm just I remember the first time someone said to me, "Gee, I see you guys everywhere," and I sort of said thank you, but the answer that I wanted to say was, that's not a coincidence. It's very intentional of saying yes and doing so many things. So I guess sometimes we'll do something where I kind of wonder what the benefit is, um, and wonder if it's really worth our time, because I think now I need to start thinking about what is actually not just financially viable, but what is viable and what is beneficial to the brand when you do these things, when you do these activations or do these Frankie Fenner feasts, and you do all these things which are, I must say, taxing. I mean, it's really, really on a personal level to be everywhere and do all these things is exhausting. And the cracks show in things like communication and things like getting back to people and things like your emails piling up. And
Or just your own sleep, man. I mean, just like going from the days that you're working on, like I don't even know what the operating hours of a butchery are, but they're earlier than like most knowledge worker business office hours as well. You open up, they're not quite as early as a bakery, but I think I'm assuming a little bit earlier than most businesses. But then you continue, and then you're in those premises, and then Frankie Fenner Feast happens at Woodstock, and it's like you keep people there as long as you can, trying to get them as drunk as possible and feed them as much meat as possible, and then you sit down and then you unwind after that, and then you only go home and then you do it again. And you have that going once a month.
And that's one of them. I mean, like I said, we're doing so many events and so many activations. But again, it's a conscious decision to do these things because I mean, as the moment you stand still, especially in Cape Town, you have the risk of it becoming irrelevant. So I guess from a personal level, I need to work out how we do this where it doesn't become too much of a key man dependency. But I mean, I'm not implying anything by this, but people also want to see me. They want to engage with me, and they want to chat to Andrew, and they want to, as much as they do the other guys. And well, the nice thing about the stores is, and I tell this to the guys in the shops all the time, that if someone walks into gardens, they're not going to see me. They're going to see you guys. They're going to see, the team working there. Even Woodstock, our office is in the back, but ultimately these guys are the face of the brand. So I've always wanted to create a brand that is, and then work in a brand that is more than just the one person and the personality behind it. That Frankie Fenner is the household name. It's more important for me that is the case than an individual. So yeah, I mean, while all these things are definitely exhausting, mentally and physically, it is a conscious decision, like I said. And while I have breath in my lungs and I can say yes, I want to do them, but I just need to be cognizant of, where the collateral damage is, which is something that maybe a helicopter view will help.
Well, I mean, where are you feeling the collateral damage right now?
I think it's I think it would be, if I was to be honest with you, it would be maybe strategic thinking, and being able to take a step back and to assess, what the next steps are in the sort of mid to long term. So that's kind of where I see and maybe if there's a weakness in the business, I'm not able to spot it as quickly as I can because I'm that old thing of working in the business, not on the business. But if you're also adding in all these other things we're doing, then I guess mental fatigue is maybe a problem, and also, not being able to have that sort of helicopter view, because you have to actually consciously take a step back and be able to carve the time out to do that. But if you don't allow yourself time and space and rest to do that, then it becomes a problem. So I think that is a big one for me. So I have to actually take a step back and look at things more holistically. So I guess from a strategic level, and then from a very personal level, I guess it's administrative. Like from me on a personal level, is definitely my own personal admin and um, administrative functions of the business are maybe lacking because of that. But I do have strong people in place to be able to cover those. But it took. I mean, a good example is to put a customer relations person in place took a lot longer than it should have, because we just worked this way for so long. And I guess the rapid growth in the last little while, it's just a different mindset and different thinking that you have to apply. And being able to not hire because, or maybe hire before it becomes a problem, not hiring because there is a problem, hiring out of desperation, or maybe not desperation, but hiring out of identifying the crisis. Yeah, they're being less reactive and more proactive. So I think that's probably where it spills out.
So look, I think this will resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs now, because this is the nature of scaling a business. But I think for those are maybe a little bit earlier stage, like they've product market fit starting to grow. They pre 20-person mark, heading for the 20-person mark. It's like, uh you know that it's always that advice that you get from people that have been through it, and it's like I just want to explain to them what are the like consequences, what are the implications of this. Like we all talk about this, working on the business instead of in it, yet we just keep working in it. Um, so I just like, what are you experiencing? What are you worried about as the downsides? What's the kind of what are the consequences of you doing this that you think other people should be able to foresee?
I guess it's the big again, like it's the sort of strategic and health of the business that you're not able to look at. You're not able to take the time to look at the figures and look at the data and look at that's not working in the business, that's on the business, that's looking at, and not, I guess, not putting people in place who are able to give you the tools to do that. And if you're doing it yourself, I mean, if you're the one who's invoicing out of zero, are you able to sit back and look at your cash flow properly? Are you able to look at, if you're the one who's chasing up payments and trying to get a customer order over the line and trying to make sure the beef is coming in the door, um, are you able then to sit back and think about what's what some weaknesses for the business are? Where's someone not performing? Where's a location not performing? How can we do something better? So I think the biggest, and it happens so quickly, man. Like, you just, a week flies by and you're just been so operationally involved in the business because it just has been one of those weeks, and you kind of catch yourself and go like, geez, I don't even know what our turnover was yesterday. I have no idea what, I don't even know. Have we like paid this guy? Like you get swept up in these weeks, and like I said, to be able to sit back and look at what the business needs, and really really take a front row seat and well, maybe a seat in the rafters, so you can not look down in that way, but to look holistically.
Or look
You
up.
can't just you just or look up. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do that if you were worrying about why the geysers burst and how to fix it. So I think you were not able to identify the weak spots, and 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 also celebrate the and complete opposite side, celebrate the strengths, and really focus and double down on, like, that's the thing we need to do, because you're distracted by everything else. So it's not all negative. It's sometimes looking at the positive sides. Not sometimes. You can hear as you're very critical because you're always looking for how one can be better and how one can be, which I have to catch myself with too, right? Because I sometimes look with a critical eye because I'm like, we need to be better here. We need to be better here. We need to do this better. This should be better. But sometimes forgetting that we can also, you know, take a moment to celebrate the victories, and if they are, you know, worth pursuing, then put all the resources, or not all the resources, but the necessary resources, behind those avenues. So in doing a million and one things, maybe I need to just take a step and identify which are the resources and where they need to be put, and which are the opportunities that need the resources.
Well, look, for what it's worth, to go from the rafters maybe to even 30,000 feet, and looking at this, what you're experiencing is very normal, and it's a life cycle stage called go, because just go, 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 go. And everyone's saying yes to everything, and everything becomes a priority. And often one of the main functions or capabilities of the business is admin that like falls to the side, and can be inefficient, and things get strained, and you're doing lots at the same time. And there's opportunities in saying yes, but there's also this fear of saying no because you know how hard it was to get here at the same time. And that is the scale stage of a business, and it's tricky and it's challenging because it's also addictive at the same time. Is to be in that chaos. Um, so I think just the intention of what I was saying there is like, for what it's worth, at 30,000 feet, is it's just validating that that's normal. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that can still be addressed. There's like um, there's what needs to be done, right? You need to do the things, you need to work strategically, but it's the nature of it.
You have the lucid moments where you're like, oh yeah, I need to kind of come out of the go dream state, and you'd have the moments of being like, oh, okay, I see this needs to be resolved. But I must say, like, we have taken big steps to plug holes and react to these weak points. And yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to transition to the stage where we are more proactive. But it's difficult. Like you said, this phase is there's a lot of growing pains. We just implemented a new point of sale system, which comes with a myriad of other things, which means we need a new accounting software. But I guess it's also hiring and trusting the people you hire, to be able to really be the support, and the people in their positions at the moment are probably know a lot more about what's going on. I just want to. It's been a lot of letting go of these things and letting go of control, so that the people you're entrusting to do these things are able to do them freely. And I said the other day to the team, I don't need to sign off on everything, but I just want to know about everything. And that's my control side. Like, I don't need to. I need you to be able to make the calls, and if you make a mistake, that's fine. We'll deal with it later, unless it's not make a catastrophic mistake. But to be able to trust the people and give them the power and the platform to be able to do that. But again, like, I guess it's a control thing. I just want to know. And I think I have the right to know about everything. Not that I need to come and trample and be involved with everything.
On the note of handing over, we also mentioned beforehand about the admin side of the business. I mean, I just mentioned it now from a more like abstract perspective, but for you practically, is like you said that it's something that should have been restructured sooner. I mean, you also mentioned client relations. Talk to me about that journey. Like, what change impact did that have on the business? Where did you start? Just even explain the admin side of your business at first and what changed.
So the thing is, I mean, I guess I maybe take for granted how overly complicated our business is. I say this, they're everyone's got their own complexities and challenges in their business, but if I hone in on what makes our business difficult, we're dealing with the fresh. Someone said to me a long time ago, they said, if you ever want to be happy, don't have stock or staff. And unfortunately, I've got a
You've got
perishable
both.
item and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think I'm still happy.
I think you can reframe perishable as mature and aging.
Okay, yeah. I think there's also a limit to that too. When the chicken's green, it's not aging anymore. But so basically, we're dealing with a product it needs cold chain. You cannot just hold endless amounts of stock. I mean, I wish we just bought Coca-Cola and sold Coca-Cola, because it would be a far easier business, or bought tin food. But we have a very complex product coming in the door, which is very bespoke. So there's an expectation on what the customer expects from us too. So it's a very layered business. We get a whole animal that comes in the door, and that turns into a myriad of options. And so you're not selling one thing or a couple of items. You're selling many items across many SKUs, across many different animal varietals. And then, on a retail level, you're cutting and giving to people unless someone orders something. But wholesale, we've all know chefs, and we've watched enough chef's tables and Netflix and Gordon Ramsay shows to know that they're pretty pedantic and they know what they want. So that comes with its whole other set of expectations and customization. So we've tried to just kind of like make it a bit more of a framework that people can stick to and what they can order. But I've always said our competitive advantage is that we can basically do what you want. So the team's going to punch me from that when I say that, because as much as you try to add structure, you also, it's so competitive that if you don't give a customer what they want, they'll go somewhere else. The loyalty is we definitely have an incredible loyal customer base and an incredibly loyal wholesale chef base. And I think that we've built that over time. But at the same time, you can only make so many mistakes or let people down so many times before they will go somewhere else. So I think from a from a growth side, when we started to delve back into wholesale so aggressively, the stock controller and the person who so admin, we basically have a person in charge of stock and in charge of our retail stores, so communicating and ensuring the standards are kept up. And then we have a finance person, finance department. It's one person, and we have a customer relations person, which is the newest hire. So that's basically the core of the admin team. And I mean, that's a tiny team for a business that is, I mean, our turnover, I just had to pay some tax, and it was it kind of is a little moment where you realize that last year
Yeah,
was a great year.
your VAT bill must not be funny.
The VAT bill's not funny. No, it's not fun at all. But I mean, yeah, it's, we look back at the figures and we had a great year last year. And this year is proving to be the same. And we have run a very small admin team, but for a
The
long
same
time
or better?
that better. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think there was this kind of like mindset of we can make it work. I'm filling in the gaps and I'm plugging the holes behind these people. And like I said, that's a very small admin team. Um, and we had the stock controller handling customer orders because those basically came into fell under the store's sort of umbrella. People would collect them from a store, so that was natural. And then the person doing the accounts and admin was doing wholesale orders. And as that ramped up, it took a while for me because, like I said, I was so in it and I didn't realize how much I was actually plugging holes. It became apparent that we needed to put someone in place to be able to handle just our customer orders, wholesale and retail. And the pressure that took off immediately the other two people was massive. But I mean, again, now it's kind of like the focus has always been opening retail shops and hiring retail staff and hiring butchers and hiring production people. And the admin side has definitely been sort of like, we'll make it work, we'll get it done. And it's that sort of mindset shift that I had to change, because that is such an important function of the business. That is crucial. It makes and breaks businesses. So I guess that was my shortcoming, that I didn't put something in place sooner.
Well, I think it's just that entrepreneurial spirit. So, and like, what is our primary instinct is the fact that it's like if things need to get done, I just head down and work harder. And I think that's the hard part about when you're scaling, is that can take you so far until that actually starts getting in the way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, like, we'll and the mindset of like, let's run lean. We need to run lean. We need to stretch our resources. We need to push. Because there's not a big corporate that has a massive admin and finance department. We this is all we can have. And I think it's that mindset shift of going, no, I mean, if we want to be efficient and accurate and not have people burning out, you can't carry on like this. So yeah,
If you want to be
that's been a
sustainable.
big, absolutely. And then the biggest thing now is trying to automate processes. So we are looking at automation in terms of, I mean, not anywhere that we're still artisanal and never going to be cutting meat with machines, but just in terms of processes in the back, customer relations management tools, and this is part of that website discussion. How do we make it more automated and easier for a customer to engage with the brand, and even if everything stayed the same, and instead of you having to send a archaic email, you could just order online. That would, I think, be a better experience, which could seamlessly talk to, your accounting package, and how to just close that loop of the admin side, so that it frees the people up to be working on the systems, not in the systems. I guess same principle.
Well, it's the first time I've heard that one. I've learned on the business instead of in the business, but really an epic framing to think about our staff and them working on the systems instead of in them. Really cool, because that's when you get like, that's the whole the genius of human beings comes in, is we're there for thinkers. It's like, yes, we can act and do things with our hands, but within business, it's like the more we can empower people to think, the more productive we are. It's cool. Thanks for that.
Glad you can like quote me.
Yeah,
Maybe
so,
it's man.
okay, I want to go back to the guilt point. Talk to me about that. I mean, you clearly still don't have quite a solution yet, but now that we've just reflected a lot on the journey, unpack that for me. Why is that still a challenge? Why is that still potent for you? And why do you think? And I imagine like almost every entrepreneur is going to resonate at this point, but just what's your lived experience of that?
It's so difficult to try and, I guess people don't own a business, or are not owners of a business. I don't know if they've. I mean, you do see it in people. My partner is very much, where she used to work. A lot of that guilt uh, existed, even though she was not an owner of the business. So, but it's definitely um, a problem that entrepreneurs have. Is this sort of, if I'm not there, it's I don't know what this impending doom might be. If anything, I think the team probably works a bit better when I'm not there, because I'm not there helicoptering them with the, which I really try not to do. But man, it's such a difficult one, because for me to be the best version of myself and the best version that the business needs, I need to be rested and cleared, and thinking clearly, and also, like, what the hell is all this work for if I'm not able to step away and go away for a week and do something? And that's the reason that's the freedom that you want to be able to to enjoy. So where it comes from, I don't know, man. I guess it's the responsibility. It's the responsibility that you feel towards the business and the staff. And I look at some businesses which have failed, and it's absent owners. So that's the fear, like, linked, that if I'm not there, it's not going to be okay. Um, and it manifests in weird ways. And like we had a crazy 2 weeks. Just when I last saw you, that Saturday night was the end of like a wild heritage week, and the week before that was also event after activation after. And Nick with Donkey Long Tongue, also Heritage Week is a huge one for us, like a mini Christmas. So um it's like everyone wants to put meat on a fire, so they want to use tongs and they want to fry meat. So it's like crazy, crazy, crazy. And I said to myself, and I said to my partner, I said to her that I was going to take the Monday off, and just have like a personal day, just like to go for a walk the dogs. I don't know, just to lie on the couch. I mean, do anything, just have like a complete switch off day. And I woke up on Monday and I had a shower and went to work. And I was like, I found myself at work being like, why the hell am I here? I said to myself, I needed to take a break and take a day off. Yet I was just there. And I mean, I absolutely could have. It was not, there's a weird, it's just it's a very, very, very strange thing. So, I mean, I try, and like, I can never really take a week's leave and be in Cape Town, because I feel like, how can I not be there? So, the only way I kind of take these breaks is to get out of town, um, which is
And get
also
out of
so
phone
unhealthy.
signal as well. It's like you have to force it.
I mean, yeah, I guess this is something that I need to do a lot more research on, and learning, and learning the tools to be able to step away and switch off and trust. And you know, someone joked the one day that they said they must only call him, well, if the building's burning down, call him after they've called the insurance, because there's nothing I can do. And I was like, that's such a great analogy, because it's like, there's nothing, I can't come fight the fire. I'm sorry. And okay, maybe that's a bit too hands off, but
Yeah, you're definitely
but
gonna go fight that fire if it's your business.
I'll be there. I'll be there. But yeah, I think it's just trying to find the balance, man, and not become a prisoner to it, because it's a very fine line between starting to resent a place. I'm not nowhere near that, but I'm aware that happens, and I never want to be in that situation. There's of course moments of resentment, and feeling trapped, and feeling like, but these are all the head movies that I'm sure every entrepreneur has. They're like feeling a prisoner to the business. And there are deep, dark thoughts that come up, and then they also just, you don't dwell on them and let them disappear. But they're definitely not a healthy headspace to be in. So I try and navigate my way away from that all the time. But like I said, there are phases when I don't think I tapped on it earlier, but in the darkest, deepest moments of 2020, when you're like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I fighting this? I can just throw the towel in. But it just was never an option. But those little thoughts do bubble up to the surface. So it's about how much energy you give them, I guess. But yeah, it's a very difficult one to navigate.
And so exactly because of that, this is why one day when I've got the time and the headspace for it, this is what I want to do my PhD in, is in entrepreneur psychology, because of exactly this challenge. And I have a hypothesis based on what you've spoken about so far. Less hypothesis, more explanation. Potential explanation, hypothetical explanation. A lot of entrepreneurs that start businesses with the attempt to try and develop wealth, success, or freedom for themselves, i.e., their main motivation is to try and start a business so that they can make money or they don't have to work for someone else. Often they come up with business ideas that are just exactly like everything else, like drop shipping being like a big craze there as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make some cash for autonomy. But the other side of it is that there's entrepreneurs that are leaders that care about serving a customer, serving their staff and their employee, making sure that their customer is satisfied, that the employees are doing well and the employees are satisfied. Those people are servants to their organization, to their business, to what they've built. And so inherently with that is like they're the last person that gets paid. They're not in this, like they know that like part of their success is coming in the long run, coming from a reward at the end of it. And it's like that's part of it. I think it'd be very difficult to maintain the same level of like ownership if they know it wasn't for something and growth. But that main motivation comes from that fulfillment and that reward from seeing that impact that they're having on the people that they're serving day to day. And so naturally within the coding of such leaders and such entrepreneurs, because they're not doing this in the short term for themselves, to prioritize themselves and their own reward and success in the short term feels like it's counter everything that's making them successful. And so it's very difficult to do that because it doesn't line up with my existing logic and philosophy.
Yeah, that I mean that's very well summarized. That's pretty. Yeah, that's. I look forward to reading your paper one day.
I look forward. Oh, I say right now, I look forward to writing it. But everyone I've ever spoken to that's done a PhD, they're like, "Why the hell have I done this?"
No, you're so right. I mean, like, I guess you've hit the nail on the head there, right? You care more than anyone in that business. You feel you do, at least. And I do think most cases you do. Which then just opens up that Pandora's box of everything that we've spoken about. Well, it's like Pandora's vortex. It's like a vortex, rather.
Pandora's void or abyss. What does the next 12 to 18 months look like for you and Frankie Fenner?
So
Hopefully a holiday or two.
We're opening up a shop in Sea Point, which I'm very excited about. It's a kind of a new space that we've opened up. We're going to be opening up a shop very much like our current retail stores, but we're checking some. So Frankie Fenner and myself are ambassadors for the Big Green Egg. It's this. For people who don't know, it's a big barbecue tool, and it is incredible. I'm not just saying that because they like us. It is really one of the coolest tools you can cook on. Actually took me over to America in 2024, sorry, last year, to this massive festival where there were like 500 eggs cooking on a baseball field, and it was crazy. So we're opening up a concept in Sea Point that has got our retail shop, but we're also going to be they're going to be two Big Green Eggs in the back, and we're going to do steak and frites. So it's steak tartare and steak and frites. So it's this kind of new concept which I'm thinking could be pretty fun. I'm wanting to explore it and see what comes of it. I do think that there's something there, maybe to see how it's received. You mentioned earlier about the vegetarian and the vegan boat, and I feel like that boat has finally found a bit more balance, because there were stages in 2018 or so when Beyond Meat was popping up, and you just wondered, like what the hell is the future hold for a meat eater, because there was so much money and drive, and we all know that these big companies and players were at um, putting a lot of money in marketing and growing this trend. But the pendulum has definitely shifted back. The carnivore diet's too far. Like we can't just eat meat all the time. That's now gone too far again, guys. But hopefully we can find a balance in the middle where people eat meat responsibly and in a you know normal levels where they're not eating steak and eggs and for every meal. So it'd be interesting to see
When
why.
salad is actually the salad at a Brian, not chicken.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is quite a cool little idea and concept that could be pretty fun. And they're sort of mutually exclusive. This retail shop, which is we definitely want to open more stores. I'm have marked a couple more places to do open more retail stores. We are under pressure in Woodstock, so we are that building is straining with the amount of work and meat and flows going through it. So we need to look at I need to take a step back there and think about what we do for that space and how we can make that a less chaotic and smoother operation. Um, and yeah, I think definitely have the eyes on continuously organically growing our wholesale and looking at expanding the stores we supply, because I feel like that's I've my partner has been in the uh, tech space, and I've seen too many venture capitalists put too much money in and things just implode. So I prefer to have a strong business that grows organically and a little bit slower, but I feel like the foundations are much, much, much stronger. So we've maybe been a bit hyper cautious, and I feel like, especially after I'm answering your question by going backwards and forwards the whole time, but
It's
especially
okay. I've got
after,
ADHD. It's a good fit.
okay, especially after, especially after the COVID guy, um, just making sure that our foundations are strong. We consolidated and made sure that like what we had was working and that it was strong. And I feel like it was such an important step to be able to make sure that the foundations were, bedrock and not clay. And we basically have established that. So now I don't want to make any bad decisions. I want to make decisions which are considered and are appropriate and are obviously everything is risk, and can't grow without risk. But I think it's about making calculated choices and calculated decisions the next while. So yeah, I think growth which is going to add to growth which is organic and add to what we're doing is the most important thing. And not just growth for the sake of growth and opening shops because you think it's the best thing to do. It must filter back in and be able to bolster what we already have.
Andrew, what is the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
Are you happy? I guess that ties in also with, I mean, this sounds maybe sounds a bit ethereal, but are you happy? And I want to continue to grow the business from a place of good ethics and good practices and good just being good people. That's what I want to lead with. And I want to ultimately find joy in this thing. I don't want to eat and kill my joy. I want to be motivated every day when I wake up, and I want to be happy, and I want to look forward to going to work. Um, so what do I do, and what are the steps I put into place to do that? And I think the biggest thing is the way we conduct ourselves and the way that we conduct our business. I always want that to be from a place of kindness and caring and good good business practices, good ethos. So I want that to be the North Star of what we do. I know that might sound a bit too kumbaya, but I really believe there's enough snakes and cutthroats in the world that I really want to be a bastion for like doing something the right way. It might not make me buy me a Bugatti, but that's okay.
Andrew, I respect the shit out of you, man. Thank you for being on the Founder Files. This has been an epic conversation. Can't wait to see the rest of your scaling journey, and yeah, looking forward to when we do round 2 of this.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.